So the next one, let's have a look. Cool. Okay, this is kind of similar, but there's a slightly different angle to this one. I've had loads of insights about how my experience is created and seen through loads of untrue thoughts, like your whirlpools that you've talked about this week. But now my emotional experience seems so overwhelming that I keep reaching for avoidance strategies or I snap at loved ones. What am I missing? So I'd like to start by saying you're not missing anything. It's normal, and in fact it's part of what I've talked about, particularly in the awakening conversation that we had on day 3. Once something's been seen about that essential nature that we are, as I said that day, the lid is off. So all the contraction that's been held in the physical system, in the psychological system, believing I'm separate, believing I'm limited, believing I'm just this body and mind, there's a lot of contraction with that. And the minute we catch sight of the fact there's something I am that's before all of that, that's the lid coming off. That's the release and the relief and the relaxation, 3 R's, which is the feeling of our expansive, essential nature. And in that expansion, even if it's just for a tiny moment, there is a releasing of those patterns of the whirlpools. Things which have been kept tight and contained are now able to move more freely. And depending on how much we've explored enlightenment prior to awakening, kind of determines how much there is to come out. Also depends on what our own volume of conditioning is like. And it seems like actually people with a lot of conditioning come into my world. I don't seem to get the ones who awaken, have a little bit of conditioning and are done. The people who come to me seem to have layers and layers and layers and very challenging life circumstances growing up or as adults, and so there's lots to be with, there's lots to bring love to. So anyway, the lid has come off, the thoughts and the feelings can now move freely again, like coming up for air. Oh, thank goodness, I've been kept down, trapped in this contraction all these years. Oh, I can breathe again, I can move again. And so in the movement of all these thoughts and feelings, much to our disappointment, thinking that awakening would bring us instant bliss and gratification, we must first of all move through this re-moving, that's never occurred to me before, this re-moving, the movement again of the thoughts and feelings and emotions that have been kept stuck and contracted. And the only way is through, because all our life we've tried to hold them down or cover them over with nicer stories, or we've tried to avoid them and pretend they're not there. And that's not worked. Quite frankly, that's not worked. That's why we end up here in this conversation. So the only way is through and with them, not in avoidance, not in suppression or denial of them. So this experience, like this questioner said, of feeling more reactive, feeling snappy, feeling overwhelmed, it's because these things that have been kept at arm's length are now free to move. They're able to come out to play. Now the human in us hates that. The mind, which thinks, God, I've worked so hard to avoid all this stuff and paper it over and pretend it's not there. And now it's all coming out. What's going on? But it's so necessary. It's such a necessary part of the process. Because these things, their nature is to move. Their nature is to be free. Their nature is to come and be here a while and then go. We've been holding them against their nature. It's somehow, I don't know how we do that, but it seems to be what happens. It's as though we've held these moving, naturally moving patterns in stasis. And now that they can move again, they will move. They will come up and out. They will present themselves. And perfect. Because only through that happening are we able to do, in fact, what I responded to in the previous question, which is be present with them. Now that they're here, now I get the opportunity to be present and with them and absent of resistance to them. And that is the settling of them. I often liken them to that 2-year-old who wants their parents' attention. Mommy, 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 mommy. And it can be the smallest amount of attention that the parent gives to the child, but that's enough. That's all that was wanted. Some acknowledgement. They wanted to be seen. And then the kid goes back to playing or whatever else they were doing. Same with these. All these thoughts and feelings that want to be seen and understood, want to be acknowledged. And it doesn't take that much presence, especially if we're in a container with 2 of us together and being present together with it. And then that is the settling of it. It doesn't need to go. It doesn't need to be, I used that word removed before, it doesn't need to be removed. It just needs to be seen. We need to see that we don't need to be afraid of it. And then it stops asking for attention because it doesn't need to anymore. Now, sometimes we need to see it a few times before that happens. But ultimately that's what's being requested of us. Just to see it, just to be with it as it is. So as much as it seems kind of irritating to the mind that that these things happen post-awakening, it is a natural part of the process. It is something that is here to be moved through. The more we do that with presence, the more these things settle. The more there continues to be resistance to it, the more they'll just keep asking, mummy, mummy, mummy. So, yeah, really, presence is the answer again. And again, that can't be faked. That can't be a mind trying to be present with it, wishing actually beneath that it wasn't here. It must be genuine okayness with this exactly as it is. Then it sees that it's been seen, then it's been loved, then it's been understood, then it's been felt just as it is. And then it can go back to playing and moving and doing what it does naturally. Lovely, lovely question. So let me check the time. Yeah, I think this is good. I think we've got time for these. So this next one, it's a longer question. Yeah, there's a bit of connection to what we said before, but there's some difference as well. So let me read this one. I've been in the 3 principles for about 18 months and think I'm in spiritual denial. I was in a group where there was, in hindsight, inappropriate behaviour, and I should have called it out. But at the time, I was so confused about what was going on. I was first of all thinking, oh, it's them, they're in their thinking, and that's for them to understand and clear up. That's not for me to do for them. Then I started to think I was lost in my thinking, and that I was creating that experience through my thinking, and that therefore it was me that needed to do some inquiry, some clearing up, some understanding. Thinking that I was seeing it as wrong because of my beliefs. And then mixed in with all of that was because I've also heard everything is okay as it is. So then I was like, well, therefore there's nothing to do with this. How could that person's behaviour be wrong? Because I've also been told that everything's okay. So you can hear in this how much, and I've been here too, how much we can get confused in the exploration. Again, it's kind of going back to the first response, in fact, around when the mind gets involved. When the mind hears an idea and starts to think, oh, I'll get out my trusty tool which says that's their thinking, or I'll get out my other trusty tool which says that's my thinking, or I'll get my other trusty tool out which says it's all okay exactly as it is. All of which is exactly like the question identified at the start, forms of spiritual denial. It's ways of the mind using this understanding in, frankly, an unhealthy way, in an unintended way. I mean, the mind doesn't mean it. It's not trying to be bad. It's all it knows to do. Look for something that's going to make me feel better. Look for something that's going to supposedly give me certainty. Look for something that's supposedly going to put me in control. Great. Now I've got some tools. I'm going to use those tools. And next time something bad comes up, now instead of having to go and have a glass of wine, I can just say, oh, it's just their thinking. Or, oh, it's just my thinking. Or, oh, it's all okay exactly as it is. Brilliant. I've got some amazing get-out clauses now to difficult situations. You know, that's kind of the thought process the mind goes through. But as we touched on in the first question there, that's like it is just the innocence of a mind that all it can do is take something and apply it. Take and apply, take and apply. Take this rule, apply it, apply it, apply it, apply it to every single circumstance. Now, in some ways it's true. It is the other person's thinking that will be leading to their unhelpful behaviour. In some ways it's true that your thinking is the lens through which you're seeing this experience, and it's absolutely true that everything is okay exactly as it is, because otherwise it wouldn't be here, it wouldn't be happening. And you are fundamentally okay because you are before any of it. You are the fundamental nature of all of it. So there is truth in everything that's being said. The only problem, and it's not a problem, it's a teaching point really, it's life teaching us, is this is an example of the mind trying to take these ideas it's heard and cookie cutter them across all of life. And that's just not how it works. Because the way it works is through genuinely being present in the moment, or having a genuine insight in the moment about what's going on. And that just being spoken or not spoken, acted on or not acted on in the world, with absent of all mind-made ideas at the level of the whirlpools. So it's the difference between this person's experience where they have come into the world via the whirlpools, which are saying, what's the right thing to do? How do I stay certain? How do I get it right? Oh, I mean, this whole new spiritual exploration. What's the right thing to do? What are the right words to say? What's the right tool to bring out of my toolkit? So via that whirlpool layer of beliefs, now the world is looked at with this person's inappropriate behaviour. And first of all, there's confusion, because whirlpool's nature is to swirl and to contradict each other and to debate and to discuss and analyse, and which is the right way, which is the right way, which is the right way. So the world is looked upon down there at the content level of the river, and it's confusing. I have no idea what to do now. And in fact, I'm so identified with these whirlpools, I'm just swirling round and round in my thoughts. And no words are being spoken to the world, no action is being taken, because I'm in these ideas of the mind. It's their thinking, it's my thinking, it's meant to be all okay. Oh yeah, so do I do something? No, I don't think so. I think we just sit here and we wait, because haven't we heard that as well? That if we just wait, this will pass, like all things pass. Yeah, let's just wait. And then, but it's all okay anyway. Yeah, so it's fine, we can just wait and everything will settle down and it'll all be okay. You know, this is the kind of mental narrative that we get into, which absolutely is the stuckness of whirlpools and can be labelled spiritual denial, because we're using ideas to deny the reality of what's happening. Because let's contrast that with if I come into the experience of life downstream, not going via whirlpools, and I see inappropriate behaviour in the world, the words and the actions just come that say, no, that's not appropriate. No, I don't like that. No, I don't think you should be doing that. And it just makes so much sense. It's so obvious. It's the most logical thing to do or say. Completely absent of any spiritual understanding or ideas or cute phrases. It's life meeting life and responding to life in that moment. And notice, you'll recognise right now, I'm sure, times of those two distinct experiences. So you can recognise the kind of clarity and assuredness and freedom with which you speak when you just come purely downstream into the world and respond to it exactly as it is. And I'm sure you also recognise the experience of coming downstream, getting caught in the mind-made whirlpool ideas, and therefore not taking action. And in fact, probably later on, berating yourself, wishing you'd done something different, using that old, in hindsight, I should have really done something. But of course you couldn't, because you were identified with a mind that was debating what's the right answer. How do I get this right? How do I get certainty? How do I get control? So of course nothing could happen. Of course you couldn't act. Of course you couldn't speak up. And of course what you really want is that pure flow downstream, to be in close relationship with life exactly as it is, absent of resistance to it. But absent of resistance to it doesn't mean passive. An absence of resistance just means I'm not going via whirlpools. And so our pure expression has perfect ability to say yes, no, okay, not okay, I like this, I don't like that. All of that is available. So in fact, this person asking this question is perfectly correct. Yes, spiritual denial was, as the signs of it, most likely happening in that moment. And it's there for a reason. Because when we have those experiences and we see how we couldn't speak up, we see the consequence of what happens in the world as a result of that, we feel then the subsequent thinking that says, oh, you should have said something. So the same mind, the same whirlpool mind that said, oh, I don't know what to do, I don't think we should do anything, yeah, it's perfectly okay as it is, yeah, let's not act, is the exact same mind that then 30 minutes later, 2 days later, a week later says, oh, you should really have done something, that really wasn't okay. Yeah, you should totally have spoken up in that moment. Really? Really, mind? You didn't tell me that at the time. But perfect, because it's all showing us all of that suffering, and we talked about suffering this week as well, all of that suffering is there beautifully, perfectly, in order to wake us up to the fact we're doing that in the first place, in order to have us see that we are going via a whirlpool idea and how the outcome is suffering. Indeed, the experience of it at the time is suffering. And to allow us to have this kind of conversation where we then can contrast that with the times when we come purely downstream into pure, intimate connection with life exactly as it is, with our yeses and our nos and our that's okay and that's not okay. And we all know, we all feel that. That's really what we want. That's really the freedom that we're looking for. So such a great example, and that, take that across all of your life. That's happening in various places all the time. There might be different words used to avoid or deny it than those spiritual phrases that this question had brought, but that same experience is happening everywhere, in little ways, in big ways, and our navigation of it is that feeling of it. Notice the feeling when we're caught in the whirlpools and how yucky that feels, how stuck that feels, how not aligned that feels. And then contrast that with the times when you're in pure flow, responding to life exactly as it is, how grounded that feels, how aligned that feels, how right that feels, how obvious it all feels. That's our barometer for whether we're caught up in the ideas of a mind or whether we're being our pure, genuinely spiritual self and responding to life as it is.